I think it's Adrian Finlay.
All right.
Can I give it a ring?
Adrian, if you're there, can you change your number to your name if it is you?
It looks like he's typed the password in as his name.
Yeah, well, that sounds about Adrian.
What number has he put in, Mr. Mayor?
877243. Well, you're going to dial
That's
it.
what
Councillor
I've got in
Coleman.
mind. That's what
Oh,
I've
that's
got
you.
in mind.
Oh, that's you then.
Yeah,
Okay, as long as we know it's you, that's fine.
Yeah.
Steve Blackburn, Steve Kirk, St Dennis, Street Barrygate Forward. I've just seen if I've got everybody
Yeah,
there.
on live stream.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure whether Councillor Finlay has actually entered yet. So I've got you down as 877243, Councillor Carpenter, yeah?
okay, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think that is it?
It is, yeah. That's the password I put in.
Yeah. I mean, like your name says Councillor Carpenter, not the actual number.
Right.
I think we have our answer for who 877243 is.
Is that Councillor Finlay?
No, Councillor Anderson.
Oh, right, okay. Okay, thank you, Councillor Kirk. Okay, then, welcome to tonight's Management Committee meeting, Wednesday, the 29th of July, 2020. I'm chairing the meeting on behalf of Jim Carpenter tonight to make sure that he's not quite 100% he can contend with this, but I'll give it a go for him. Okay, agenda item number 1, the minutes of the last meeting that are attached. To note the minutes of the meeting of the Management Committee held on March the 11th, 2020, approved by Council on the 6th of May, 2020.
Move that we take them as read, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kirk. Do I have a seconder?
Second those, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favour, please show. We're waiting for some hands to go up on your screen, gentlemen. I said gentlemen because I can see Councillor Blackburn, she's raised her hand. So Councillor Barry, Councillor Sutton, Councillor Ty and Saxon, please. I can't see your faces on my screen. If you could raise your hands on the screen, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot see all your faces, so.
Problem's going to be the signal's not great here, so if I lose signal, I'll get rid of the video, but then you wouldn't be able to see me.
No, but
Just
I can't
to
see the raised
clarify.
hand on the participants. If you raise your hands on the participants section, I can see everybody who's in the room, whether your video's on or not. I can see the raised hand. I am struggling to see raised hands.
Mine's raised on the participants.
Yeah, we've got Councillor Finlay, Sutton, Saxon, Councillor Barry, and Councillor Cunnington. I could ask Councillor Cunnington, please.
Paul, you've got to raise your hand on the participants badge, not on the screen.
All the ones you've just mentioned, Mark, they're all waving at you.
Yeah, I can't see any of them.
Yeah, they've all got their hands up.
Okay, so then that's carried. Thank you. We might be running a bit slow tonight. So yeah, if you'd like to lower your hands on your screen. Okay, agenda item number 2, to note apologies received by the town clerk prior to the meeting.
We have apologies from Councillor Ensign.
Okay, thank you, town clerk. Agenda item number 3. Sorry.
The Deputy Town Clerk is indicating another.
Sorry.
Councillor Claxton as well, I've got apologies from.
Okay, sorry, Kate. I've got you on my screen, sorry. Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 3, to receive any declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? Okay, I will declare an interest on agenda item number 11, the cafe licence. I have 2 businesses with a cafe licence, so I shall mute my microphone and sit out and Councillor Carpenter then will take over on agenda item number 11. Councillor Danny Brooks, please.
Same item. Can you hear me, Mark?
Yeah, I can hear you, Danny. Yeah.
Yeah, same item, similar business, just up the road.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jimmy Brooks.
I'm same item because I'm related to Councillor Danny Brooks. So to be safe, I'd rather not be participating. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Billy Brooks.
Yeah, I'm the same again. I'm obviously related.
Okay, thank you. Okay, agenda item number 4, minutes of the Planning and Planning Policy Committee attached to approve the minutes of the meeting of the Planning and Policy Committee held on Wednesday the 15th of July 2020.
Can I move that we move those, please, Mayor?
That's Councillor Ty. Yes, thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, please.
Councillor Blackburn? Can't hear you, but you second that, yeah?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favour, please raise your hands on the participants page. Once again, we need some raised hands. Councillor Brooks, Sutton, Saxon, Cunnington. Councillor Cunnington, what are you for? Councillor Dennis and Councillor Kirk.
Yeah,
I
as
won't be
normal,
voting,
Mr.
Mr.
Mayor.
Mayor.
I wasn't part of the planning
I can't
meeting.
agree that they are accurate minutes.
Okay, thank you.
No, I wasn't at the Councillor Dennis here. I wasn't at the meeting, so.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Brooks, I wasn't at the meeting either, so I can't say if it was accurate or not.
Okay. So looking at it, that's carried anyway. Can you see that, Town Clerk? I'm just double checking.
It was carried, yes.
Yes, thank you. I think we've got a little bit of a slow running system tonight for a few of us. Okay. Agenda item number 5, the annual report is attached to approve the annual report. Councillor Anderson. No, Town Clerk, sorry.
Mayor, I think Councillor Anderson's mic is muted at the moment. But just before he speaks, I was just going to say that the annual report is normally presented at the town meeting, but obviously there hasn't been one this year. There were some changes emailed around this afternoon relating to councillor attendance. There was a mistake in the total number of meetings, which affected the numbers slightly, and that's been corrected. And there was also a change in how Councillor Edgington's name was presented in one of the pages, so that's been corrected as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Anderson, did you want to speak? Sorry.
Yeah, thank you for that. Basically, I've got no qualms about the annual report apart from one issue, and I think we speak about it every year. I've had some awful slagging off, on social media about my attendance, which has been leaked out before the annual report. And I take great exception to that because, as you know, lots of you know, last year, and the town clerk knows, I was very seriously ill, hospitalised, and I don't deserve to be slagged off in the public arena on social media about my attendance because I cannot attend council meetings because I was hospitalised, seriously ill. Something has got to be done about this because this is breaking out is against the law, GDPR rules, and I'm really angry about it. I've had to take legal action, and I'm prepared to take legal action and go through the courts again because of this, because it is really upsetting me and my family.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any comments on the annual report?
I think Councillor Kirk has got his hand raised.
Councillor Kirk, I can't. Okay, Councillor Kirk, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. Yeah, I'd like to move the report the version we got this afternoon with the amended figures. And in defence of Councillor Anderson and anybody else, I know I had a long period off. People recall a few years ago when I was in hospital for quite a long period. But I would say to anybody, there's more to being a good councillor and attending a lot of meetings.
Yeah, fully agree. Okay, Councillor Jimmy Brooks.
I'd second the report. It's a nice report.
Thank you. Can we have all in favour to raise your hands on the participants page, please? That's carried. Thank you. Agenda item number 6, the governance report, Q1 report and appendices attached to include income and expenditure and balance sheet, bank reconciliations to follow, risk register and outstanding actions. Councillor Danny Brooks. Councillor Sid Dennis. Councillor Dennis. No.
Mayor, do you want me to go through it?
Yes, please.
Normally at this time of year, the first quarter report is quite an uneventful report where we're just starting to get figures for the year. We don't know what's really going to happen. So there's normally not a lot of actions that come out of it. This year is a bit of an exception. If we go through the financial report, you'll see there that I've started to identify areas where the council's finances will come under pressure, mainly as a result of COVID-19 and the consequences and knock-on effect of that. The point costs are slightly different. There's a pressure on costs there. We budgeted for 2.5% increase in payroll. There has been an offer by government of 2.75% to local government workers. That's currently rejected by the union side, and it's going to be discussed again at the end of August. But it certainly looks as if, at best, there will be pressure on costs. I think it unlikely, given the current financial situation in the government, that they will increase the offer, but it's going to be 0.25% over on those costs. If we go down, then most of the other changes, some are bigger than others. I won't go through every single one, but I'll pick on the biggest ones. So we've got spending on COVID to PPE, signage, hand sanitizer, all of the extra things, masks, gloves, etc., that we've had to purchase in order to remain COVID safe. We've got a big pressure on income. So car park income is significantly down on where it should be this time of year. And even though we're now into the summer months, it's not quite where we would expect it to be. So we're going to expect to be seriously down on that income at the end of the year. We budgeted for around £25,000. I will be surprised if we make £10,000 by the end of the financial year. So that's a big shortfall. The income from kiosks, we haven't received any money yet from any of the kiosks. That is over £50,000 worth of income in the year. As you know, council have agreed that there can be a payment option for the leaseholders. but I'm going to start putting a bit of pressure on to get some income in, because many of the kiosks are now quite busy, and I know that they've got costs that they've had to deal with, but if we're £50,000 down at the end of the year, add that to the shortfall from the car parks, you can start to see that that's putting a big pressure on our reserves. The cemetery income is also down on last year. I'm not sure why that is. It's sometimes a bit too early to tell. That can change during the course of the year. So I say it's a pressure. I don't know how big that's going to be at this moment in time. We've also lost, although we hadn't budgeted a great deal for income from the hall, we had before lockdown secured £11,000 of potential income from bookings, but of course all of that's now been wiped out. So you know, there would have been some good news, but unfortunately there's now not on that. If things continue as they are, I can see us being somewhere between 50 to £100,000 down on income and with the extra expenditure at the end of the year, and that would have to come from the general reserve. Now, general reserves are going to have to be rebuilt because we can't enter into next year with, you know, hardly anything in the general reserve, and that, in essence, is going to put pressure on the precept. You know, £50,000 is 10%, to put it in very blunt terms. So this is the first quarter. We'll see, obviously, by the end of the second quarter, as we then come up towards budget setting time, how things are going then. This is really raising the flag early that we have got some, you know, significant income issues. If there's any questions on the finance side, I'll take those before I move on to risk management and the other areas of the report.
Okay, got Councillor Anderson, please.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a good report and it's interesting reading. I am worried about the business, obviously, because of COVID, the finance, I should say, and also the income through the bit for the business or for the council, I should say, and the loss of income because of it. There's two issues I'd like to raise basically over the income. That is the Scarborough Avenue car park. At the moment, it's still under East Lindsey regulations, meaning the first 2 hours are free. When I was on East Lindsey District Council, I did a scrutiny report because a policy was passed at East Lindsey District Council saying that one car park should be for residents free of use up to 2 hours. And Scarborough Avenue was designated as that car park by East Lindsey District Council. Now we have taken that over. I think we need to revert back to full charging because it has an effect on us, on our income, and East Lindsey in its policy will have to find another one of their car parks for residents parking. Hopefully that would be nearer the town rather than the outskirts of the town. So we probably would have to look at that next year because as bylaws and changes have to be made, and probably the town clerk would have to explain that. The other issue is the kiosks. Obviously, yes, I think we do need to add some pressure on to get some rent. I know for a fact, going past those kiosks, most of them have been open since June of this year, just after the whip break. If not earlier, some have been open, so they have been trading. Obviously, if they've been trading, then they need to pay rent. I think the policy was put in place, which we said it would be put in place, was to help them when they were closed. But obviously, if they're trading, then obviously they need to pay rent because money is going over the till. I think that's fair and right, because I think you can't go back to the council taxpayers, the ordinary residents in Skegness, and say, put up your council tax to subsidise it, because the council tax will have to rise quite a lot next year to pay for all this. And I think once we go through that planning, you'll be surprised how much it will have to increase to cover everything that we want to do, or cover the reserves that we have to make. And I think there'll be uproar in the town if the residents found out we're subsidising businesses as well, because they're not paying rent. And I'll stop there for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Danny Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Anderson regarding the kiosk rents. We've been open and we're trading, and I've paid my rent. The district council are now putting pressure on the kiosks that haven't paid the rent. They're probably just holding out, hoping that the council will give them a bit of leeway. But in my view, they should be paying the rent. That is their leaseholder obligations. And as Councillor Anderson said, why should the residents of Skegness subsidise them? Thank you.
Yeah, I fully agree. I'm in the same situation, and the rent has been achieved up to now. Not saying for the future months, but it has been up to now, so some payment could be made. Councillor Cunnington, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I totally agree with both the previous councillors, Councillor Anderson and Councillor Brooke. I'm just wondering, with regards to the extent of the deficit we're going to have due to COVID, I'm sure our residents will understand that COVID has played part in this. I'm just wondering from the top how we stand by breaking that deficit down over, say, a set 3-year period to try to recoup the full deficit, rather than try and look at it in one hit for 1 year. Can we say, if there's a 60,000 deficit, we need to try to recoup 20,000 over a 3-year period and put that in place, that it is a 3-year plan to recoup? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I can respond to that question. The difficulty that the council will have is if its general reserves drops significantly. If you remember, when we set the budget last year, I reported that the general reserve was already at the lowest level that is regarded as safe by the external auditors. If you then cut that in half, obviously it's going to be very low. And if COVID was to continue into next year, or there was another issue that came up that was unexpected, council could be in a position where it simply doesn't have sufficient general reserve funds to deal with it. So I think it is. I think the minimum level of reserves does need to be maintained. The extent to how much that is, we won't know. I mean, I've given an indication based on how things are at this moment in time. If things improve, then it may be lower. If we hit a second wave of COVID, then it could be a worse situation. We won't know that until later on in the year. But we also need to be mindful that the income from the car park, for example, if COVID strikes again, may be low next year as well. So that means you've got not only less money in reserve, but you've also got less income coming in. So you've got like almost like a double whammy in terms of having to manage that. So I think it's very important that the reserves are not allowed to fall below the level that they're at this present time. So I would have serious concerns that the council wouldn't be able to manage going forward.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tony Tye, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I completely concur with Councillor Anderson that we should lose the 2 hours free on the car park as from now, really, and let's try and get some of the costs back from that. I've been by the kiosks on the front many times in the last fortnight, and I tell you, they have been really busy. So there's no reason why we shouldn't get letters off to them demanding some of the rent in. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to come back on that, Town Clerk, before I bring Councillor Kirk in?
Yes, I'll come back on the car park. We won't be able to change the car park charges for some time because we would have to go through the whole consultation process that East Lindsey goes through. In fact, East Lindsey would have to do it because they are, as when we took the car park over, I explained that the power to charge actually rests with them. They set the charges. We can actually tell them what we want the charges to be, and they will go through the process to set them at that level. But we would have to pay their legal costs and the consultation costs in changing that, which is why we didn't do it this year, if you recall. I think you're looking at 12 months realistically to actually change those things. It's not something that will easily be changed.
Okay, thank you. I think one of the biggest issues here we've got now, like we say, we've got businesses taking money. They could be trying to pay some of this off, so a letter going out would sooner rather than later.
I was going to say I've already drafted a letter to go out the 1st of August, and that explains the council's own financial position, and it does look at. We've seen that they are reasonably busy. They have, some of them will have had the loans or grants rather from East Lindsey District Council, so there should be some scope for them to pay something and not leave us in a position where we're £50,000 down on that income at the end of the year.
Yeah, fully agree. Councillor Steve Kirk, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree that we need to do everything we possibly can to maximise our income. Looking at 2.3.2, a rise of 20% plus inflation is totally unacceptable, particularly, you know, in a town such as Skegness, where there are a lot of people who are struggling. So we need to do everything we can to get that as low as possible. My question to the Town Clerk would be, whilst we maintain a general reserve at a minimum level, we do have earmarked reserves. Would there be a possibility that we could use some of those earmarked reserves as an emergency to bolster our general reserve and then refill our earmarked reserves over a 3-year period, i.e. the period of this council? Because obviously we can't do that over a 5 or 10-year period, because obviously we can't tie the hands of a future council, but surely that would be a way of spreading the risk of us not getting all the money in next year as well, if we were to use earmarked where possible and then inflate those over the coming years rather than go straight in for 20% to replace our general reserve. Those are questions to the Town Clerk.
Thank you. Town Clerk, please.
You possibly could do that with some of the earmarked reserves. Some of the earmarked reserves are set there to deal with any unplanned significant maintenance. So, for example, if there was a major repair needed in our gardens, or if we were hit with heavy storm brought down a lot of trees, we would need to be able to draw on those earmarked reserves that are there for specific purposes of maintaining. You've now got assets, you need reserves to be able to maintain those. There's an investment reserve which has got about £10,000 in, and it may be possible to take some of the cemetery reserve to offset. So there is some scope to do that, and then those could be built up over future years.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jimmy Brooks, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it's grim reading. Everybody's in the same boat. I've had to pay my rent, whether I take money or not. I think we do need to recoup a rent as soon as we can, because when you go up to Skegness, it is fairly busy and they are taking money. So we do need to get our money in as soon as possible. It's a shame that we can't change the car park situation as well, because that would be another source of income. I think we're all singing off the same hymn sheet. And I agree with Councillor Kirk that maybe we need to try and sort of like move the funds around if possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Anderson, please.
Yeah, thank you. Totally agree with the debate. I think we're all singing off the same hymn sheet here. I'm a bit concerned if we put money around it. I agree with the town clerk. We've got major assets now. All it takes is COVID to hit us or spike again, or a tree comes down in Tower Gardens or Vine Walk or somewhere like that due to high winds in the winter period or autumn winds or whatever, and then we haven't got the funds to deal with it. That's what worries me, and I said that last year at the time, but that was before COVID. But COVID's hit us, and it's hit us hard, and it's hit most local authorities. I think what we've got to do is go very carefully through the budget papers, and if we can move money around on the investment side and probably on the cemetery side that we've got, then obviously that will cover a small amount. But we're going to have to talk or bite the bullet regarding the travellers as well. That's going to come up, and how we secure those spaces when there's no money in the budget as well. So there are extreme pressures on us all, and I think we're going to have to go through this with a fine-tooth comb to bring the precept down.
Thank you. Yeah, I can hear everybody's views, and like we are all singing from the same hymn sheet. It's something that we need to be positive as well in the situation that we're in, and we need to go down the line of now trying to get the rents in, and then we worry about this further on. The town clerk has raised the flag that we need to be aware of, and we now need to start going to get these rents back, because we've all agreed that they are taking money. Is there any other questions?
Move on to the other parts of the report, Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Ty, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for the town clerk, really, that there's no reason why he cannot, from next week, start letting the community hub to small groups. I had it from Matt Warman himself that the government are going to open up the community halls and so on for use next week.
Okay, thank you.
Now I can respond to that. We had planned to open it from the beginning of September. We haven't actually got currently. We have let for a meeting so far, one meeting, but we haven't got the actual interest that we had before at the moment, because those groups themselves have to have risk assessments. Things like Keep Fit, for example, though it sounds like you can reopen, the restrictions that are being placed on those groups and the risk assessments that they're having to do don't necessarily make it viable for them to operate something that's going to pay for them. So if you've got an instructor and that you've only got 4 or 5 people, it's not even covering their costs. So it's definitely, we're open to that. We're getting prepared for that, but we have to have the custom coming in as well, and that isn't the case at this moment in time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dan Kirk, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's mainly a point for Councillor Saxon, because when we're referring to raise your hand, it's a virtual raise of hands. That's why you're getting missed, Councillor Saxon. I can see he's getting a bit frustrated in not being able to speak, and it's the fact that the chairman can't see a physical raising of hand. You've got to go into participants and click on the button that says raise hand. And in that note, maybe Councillor Saxon wants to speak, I think. Thank you.
Councillor Saxon, did you want to speak?
Yes, just on now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
you. It's in the cemetery for about £60,000 in there. I think that's a good safety net to keep, rather than dip into it willy-nilly. But it's there as a safety net. We're not going to be using that for a lot of years. The land's there, and people are getting cremated rather than buried. Just a point I was making. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Town Clerk.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with it's 30 to 40 years away from any replacement to cemetery, and then council would have the decision as to whether that's an appropriate, thing for them to carry forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you'd like to mute your microphone, Councillor Saxon?
I'll go back to risk management then, if you.
Yes, thank you.
Right. So the risk register is there. There are some new risks which mainly are related to COVID on there, but I've also put a couple of other risks in. One is in relation to Japanese knotweed. We identified an area of land that has that. It is a notifiable weed, so we have to go through a procedure. Now we're hoping obviously that this is a limited area, but even that is a 5-year program to actually remove it. It's so invasive. So there will be some costs from that, and hence that's what I was saying about things like the public property reserve. We'll have to draw on that to pay for this, because obviously it's an unexpected. So as I say, there are a few in there that are going up because of COVID and the way that we've been working. As I mentioned in the council previously, there's quite a few outstanding tasks administratively now, so we're starting to struggle to keep on top of those and get back to where we should be. Hopefully we don't get too many of these other issues coming out, which is taking up a lot of our time. I've also put the risk of illegal occupation of our land. That's on the agenda a bit later on. But again, that's a risk that we'll need to consider, and you'll need to identify how you want to manage that going forward. So those are the main additional risks in the report. Then moving on to outstanding actions, you'll notice that some of them are greyed, and I've put recommend remove. That's where the initial project has been completed and they're now part of day-to-day business. So I'm recommending that they get taken off as specific actions now. Then moving on to the operational reports, we've had quite a few queries about Castleton Boulevard. It's just a reminder really that the early part of the year, when we would have been putting the getting the beds and everything ready, Lincolnshire County Council was carrying out work on that road. We then hit lockdown, which caused a problem in terms of securing the rest of getting the rest of the work done and getting the flowers in there. It became overgrown with weeds. We've now sprayed the weeds. We're waiting to put the bark back in, but the actual planters of that are not going to go back in until the next planting. So we'll be planting in the autumn for next spring. So if anybody raises queries about why that isn't, why they aren't in there at the moment, that's why. Play areas are now have been reopened. A bit later on the report, there is the risk assessment for play areas that we're working under. We took some advice from Lauk on that, because the government restrictions seem to be ridiculously, wiping down all of the time. You'd have to have somebody permanently there to do that, but I think that's been recognised now, and I think the risk assessment that we've got in place perfectly satisfactory unstaffed play areas. The allotments causing us again a problem, which is has potential financial consequences. We're getting a lot of fly tipping on the allotments, and it appears that it's fly tipping from people who have got allotments. So it's cheaper to rent an allotment and dump your rubbish and then disappear than it is to hire a skip. So there's quite a few of the areas which have got rubbish on there. It's hard to tell whether it's real, allotment rubbish, or whether it's like we've had lots of tires, and we've got bed frames and things like that, which is fly tipping. So difficult to deal with, because every time we get the skip and remove the stuff off, that's over £200 plus staff time to do it, and for the rents that we charge are obviously a low rent, which is what allotments are about. But we could potentially ask for a deposit on the new lettings that would only be returned if the plot is returned in a clean and tidy state. But that's an option, and I think looking at what others charge, I think we could reasonably charge £50 deposit. Okay, it wouldn't cover the cost of a skip, but at least it would be some sort of contribution towards it. I think there's probably about 3 skips worth down at the allotments at this moment in time, just to give you an idea. And we've also been approached by a neighbouring property that says that allotment holders have been throwing rubbish over the fence. And I've seen photographs of that, and there is in fact a considerable amount of rubbish. Now, I don't know whether it's been thrown over the fence, but it certainly is in a position that it could well have been. And there's potentially, again, skip loads there. So this could cost quite a lot of money to clear up and maintain. So I think it is something that council needs to have a view about moving forward. I'll carry on, and then I'll take any questions at the end.
Yeah, can I just stop you, Councillor Town Clerk? Can I just ask Councillor Saxon to mute his microphone, because you're breaking up? I keep hearing things in the background, and this is the only microphone that I can see turned on. So Councillor Saxon can turn his microphone off. And then...
Is that already gone?
No, he's still on. Getting interference. If you could look at turning it off for me, Councillor Saxon, it would be great. And
shall I mute it remotely?
If you can, please.
So to continue, the amenity grass verge cutting has gone generally well, considering the issues we've had in terms of transportation after the theft from the cemetery, and also COVID, and we're back to pretty much a normal cut now. 2 to 3 week cycle for most cuts. Places like Beresford getting a slightly better rate than that. As I mentioned, we've got a potential case of knotweed, which is being looked at now. In terms of the pavilion, we're about 2 to 3 months behind now where we would have liked to have been. We're still doing snagging as little issues crop up in the building. The Jolly Fisherman paintings are still away. They are getting close to now to being finished, so hopefully in the next month or so they will be ready for return, and then we'll have them mounted on the internal wall of the cafe. So as I've mentioned, there was a lot of interest in booking the hall. That's disappeared.
Right, sorry, Town Clerk, I can't. Can Councillor Saxon turn his microphone off? Just breaking everything up. Can't hear a word of anything.
Throwing us off. Mute.
It's not.
Yeah.
I've muted it.
Thank you.
Oh, it's been unmuted now. Oh no, that's it. Muted.
Now it's muted again. Is it
No, it's
muted
unmuted.
now?
You've unmuted it, but if you mute it, if you press the button again, it will mute.
The button keeps disappearing. Sorry about this, guys. I don't know what's happening with this damn.
I'll mute it, Councillor Saxon. Let me mute it.
Yeah.
So in terms of the cafe, it's been open just over 3 weeks now. So again, it was due to open at the end of May. So we've lost that sort of quieter lead-in time to get things to bed in. It opened on the 6th of July. So too early to see how things are going. And there has been a steady increase in trade. The first week obviously was mainly training and getting people used to the till system and the such like. But we've had a steady week on week increase in trade, and we're starting to see some regular people coming in, and especially some older people who are coming in. They enjoy sitting there and having a pot of tea and looking out across the park. So you can see the beginnings of sort of like the community side. Most of the people coming in appear to be residents, which is good. As I reported before, other than the manager, the staff have all been recruited on temporary contracts. That's to give us a flexibility in case obviously we get a second wave. So we'll keep an eye on that. But the council offices are also now open for inquiries at the reception desk. We're starting to get people coming in. We're getting people for East Lindsey because the town hall isn't open. Which is quite frustrating because there's no way that those people can have any face-to-face contact with the people that they need to see. So that's really that's quite difficult, and we can't help them beyond sort of pointing them and asking them to phone. So I think that could be an issue going forward, depending on what East Lindsey decide to do with the town hall and whether there is a contact point going forward. So visitors into the building, we're still getting a few people for deliveries and people coming in to do repair, minor repair works in response to the snagging, that sort of thing. What we're asking is, when we're fully occupied in the office, then if we get more people coming into that area, then we're going to have to look at wearing masks, because we wouldn't be able to get social distancing in the office at that time. So up until now, we've been working it so there's only been 2 or 3 people in the office, but we're starting where there's likely to be 4 of us at times in the office. I'm still working at home some of the time. In some ways, it's easier to do reports and things, and certainly on a meeting night, I can do my preparation more easily. But we are getting to a point where we need to be wary of, in terms of ensuring that we're complying with our own safety guidance. Tower Gardens, as you know, it was reported, I think last time, or at council, that there was a crack near the bridge. We've done a temporary repair on that, and we've repaired a couple of smaller potholes as well with tarmac, mainly to reduce the risk of there being a trip hazard. I think there is a long-term project here in terms of the path. At some point, they will need a sort of more substantial repair because some of the top is delaminating a little bit. It looks like it's a resin top on another surface, so and some of that's cracking. We've done most of the electrical work now in Tower Gardens, and as you see, the lights are now on of a night, which is, it's quite nice to see them all working. There is a problem with the pond pump that seems to be tripping out the electrics from time to time. So we're looking into that currently to see what needs to be done. And lastly, in Tower Gardens, Councillor Cunnington arranged a second inspection from the people who deal with visual disability. And there is going to be a report coming in due course from that. The original report wasn't, as Councillor Cunnington mentioned, wasn't standards that the organisation doing it expected it to be. Other than that, the communications are there before you. I'm not going to go through those in any detail other than to say they've increased a bit around COVID and people trying to find out information. That's why that quarter in some areas went up. So recommendations there before you. If there are any things that you want to note or report back to council officially, then this is it.
Okay, thank you for your report, Town Clerk. Councillor Anderson, please.
Thank you. And thanks to Town Clerk for his comprehensive report. Sorry to hear about the allotments. I have had it myself that fly tipping is going on at the allotments due to the Civic Centre and the restrictions placed upon it through COVID and Lincolnshire County Council, and having slots. People are using that as a fly tipping area, and other areas in Skegness around Beacon Park Estate as well. People are fly tipping there as well. So obviously that's not the fault of the civic site, it's the regulations of slots, and Councillor Dennis may want to come in regarding that people have to book slots before they go in to take their rubbish into the civic sites. But I do agree on, and I think it's Dan Kirk has raised the issue about CCTV. If we could put some CCTV into the somewhere around the allotments and maybe catch these perpetrators, but at the end of the day, it's going to cost us again, and it's going to cost the council taxpayers, the ones that are lawfully doing things, money yet again. We're going to have to pay for people who are just breaking the law and fly tipping, and that's not fair. The other issues that I wanted to raise is about Tower Gardens. They look absolutely immaculate, and it's just a pleasure just to walk in there. I don't know how many people have done it, but or councillors have done it, but I certainly have, and it's so amazing. It's just amazing just to walk in there and see how things are done, how they were before and how they are now. It's just amazing, and I'm gobsmacked every time I walk in there. Regarding Councillor Cunnington's report, I'm glad to see we're moving on with that, because I think we need to share that with all disabled people, whether they be visually impaired or other disabilities. And if we can help them share the experience that I get in going there, that's got to be a plus. So again, I'd like to ask Councillors Ty and Dennis regarding the town's fund, because there was a new initiative by the government to put in extra resource for things like that can be used on the Tower Gardens, and see how that's coming on, so we can put more people into Tower Gardens to encompass what we've set up there. Thank you.
Thank you. I think before we just bring Councillor Dennis in, but I think we are going to move forward once this report has come back to us. We are looking forward to this report. I spoke to Councillor Cunnington today, who says it's imminent and it's on its way. So I look forward to seeing that. Councillor Sid Dennis, please. Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Vis-a-vis the civic community site, that my guys, we run Skegness and Louth, my company, on a management basis. And please be aware that there's very, very few days we're fully booked. There is always slots, and a lot of afternoons, especially in Skegness, where it's very, very quiet. So really, there's no excuse for fly tipping. If you click and collect, and you've got no problem, you just click in at the day, and it's quite simple. It's all laid out there on the booking website. It's quite simple to do, and there's certainly no need at all for any amount of fly tipping. And people keep asking my guys, when are we going to get back to normal? Well, this is the normal. This is the way it's going to go now, certainly until the end of October when we have a review, but certainly this is the way it's going to go. And it does work well. People in the main are very happy with it because they feel that they book their slot and they come in and they're not turning up to something, the elderly people especially, because we can't help them anymore by lifting them and managing the people. We can't do that because of social distancing. We've got a lot of things in place where we point and we try to help where we can. You know, there are different rubbish days. Well, we do tend to try to help people where we can. But it is a difficult time trying to protect the public and protect my staff as well. It's a very difficult time. But there's absolutely no need for fly tipping in any way, shape or form. I've got a feeling a lot of these fly tippers are probably traders and people going on Facebook and saying, you know, 15 and 20 pound a tip run and all that. Well, all that's been stopped because we won't allow any type of transit type vans. We'll only allow trailers certain times a week, but it's all on the booking. It's all on the booking form and it's always done. Moving on to the Towns Fund, I think that's a question for Tony Ty to answer. He's the council's representative on the Towns Fund board, and I'll just hand it over to you, Tony. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dennis. Councillor Ty, would you just come back in on that one while we're on our subject?
Yes, thank you for that, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would like to see my good friend said take to East Lindsey about the 750,000 extra they're giving the town for green spaces for COVID help with COVID after the event and for green spaces. Now that 750 could go a long way on helping with the park situation. And I'd like to see that go into that committee, and let's have a good discussion about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you just like to come back in on that, Councillor Dennis?
Yes, certainly. The problem with this money that's come, there's £500,000 for Mablethorpe and £750,000 for Skegness. As I see it, it's a time-related fund. It's time-related on what you've got to evidence everything, and you've got to have shovels in the ground within this financial year. And it's very, very difficult to rack a plan up in time to do all this. I don't know if Councillor Kirk can help us with this, but it's very, very difficult trying to weigh up. You know, we've got the police college, they're looking for money. We've got the new foreshore plan looking for money. Everybody's looking for money, and it's a balance trying to manage where this money is. If we're going to get this money, whereabouts it's going to go. But we are on it. The committee's on it, and we are working forward. There is some things to go towards the board, which you'll see at the next board meeting, which is I think in early August. Is that right, Tony? I think it is. I think it's early August. The next
yes,
board
you're
meeting.
right. Yes, you're correct, Councillors.
Yeah, and so it'll be going in for that. And we've had a lot of discussion about it, but it's all time related. It's very, very complicated how it all works, and it is for me as a layman. I'm in business. It's different when you're in your own business. It's totally different to try to balance things the way councils balance things and the way it's all weighed up. I find it very challenging, to be fair. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dennis. We've got a few hands up, but Councillor Kirk will probably bear that in mind when he comes to speak. He's a little bit further down the line. Councillor Anderson, did you leave your hand up from last time, or? Yes, okay. So, Councillor Blackburn.
Yeah, mine was just on the tip situation. I've used the booking twice on 2 separate days, and I hope it stays the same. It's a much better experience. There's no big queues. It doesn't block the traffic up, and it works really well. So I'm hoping it stays as it is. I don't know if Councillor Dennis wants to let us know what he's thinking on that.
Yeah, it does bring challenges though, Councillor Blackburn. I have to say, we had one lady, when we looked at the chart, was booked in 6 times in the one day. And I met her and I said, you booked in 6 times, love. She said, well, I didn't know what time I was going to wake up. So I booked myself 1 slot for every hour, and then I could turn up whenever I liked. I thought, it don't quite work like that, madam. I do apologise, but that's what you get. We had one couple travelled with a van, and they came for a day out from Hull, and we wouldn't allow them on the tip. And so they said, well, we're not happy with that. So they got their picnic tray out, blocked the car park, and set the trip, and had a picnic for a couple of hours. That was a bit of a strange situation that we were in. And then they decided to cost customers coming in with their green waste, and could they put a bag of green waste in each car as it came into the site. So it is very, very challenging down there. You know, but we're getting through it, and it is a good way. And I believe, you know, especially in this situation and moving forward, it certainly cut down the trade waste that's coming in, which was a lot of money that the ratepayer were paying for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cunnington.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, just another one on the tip situation. I'm wondering from the town clerk, have we had many inquiries to the office for the tip booking situation? There may be a number of people out there that aren't internet friendly that probably can't book over the internet. So I'm just wondering if there's any way we can help those sort of people, or could Councillor Dennis come back to us with a form that could be collected, just a basic form, so that somebody could actually coordinate it for the people that aren't computer literate to book in for themselves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, shall I come back on? I don't believe we've had very many. We've had a few, but not many. And it is, you know, do we really want to take on the responsibility? It is Lincolnshire County Council's tip. It's their responsibility to make sure that the people they represent are properly able to access their systems. If we, you know, if we end up adopting and helping every one of these new systems that comes along, we can end up having to employ more staff to provide services for systems that need to be properly supported by the council introducing them.
Can I come back, please?
Yes, you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, on that then, obviously you're saying it's down to the county. So are we referring people back to the county? Because at the end of the day, these are our residents. And if you're referring them back to the county, can we ask our county councillor, Mr. Kirk, to put some sort of assistance and help in place for our residents that aren't computer literate? Like you say, 70, 80-year-olds have probably got a few bags of green waste. They may need some help and support. We need to do something for them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Steve Kirk, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, a couple of issues there. Firstly, I'll deal with the last one first, if that makes any sense. When the original guidance went out, there was a customer service phone number that people could ring. That's a Lincoln number, and book their slot over the phone. So there are 2 ways of booking a slot. I know it certainly looks like Lincolnshire County Council are trying to push everybody to do it online, but you can book by the phone. So maybe I'll certainly take back and report back to the portfolio holder. That should be more visible for people, because a lot of people think you do have to book online, but I'm led to understand you can ring customer services in Lincoln. The second thing was about the Towns Fund. I agree with Councillor Ty. When I saw that letter and it said one of the three things was green spaces. I thought, well, that's got Tower Gardens written all over it. But unfortunately, as the town clerk alluded to at our last meeting, full costed plans have to be with them by the middle of August to start this year and to be completed by the end of this financial year. So there's absolutely no way that we can have a fully costed proposal in place by the middle of August to start the works and have all the money drawn down and spent by the end of March. So it really is something you need to turn around very, very quickly. But we need to bear in mind that's the extra £750,000. There's still the bigger pot of money that we can go for, and certainly, you know, if this could be worked up in time, there's absolutely no reason it couldn't be in it. But again, that I understand, and Councillor Tower, correct me if I'm wrong, it is the intention of the board to make its formal submission at the end of October. Although government has changed the rules again on the Towns Fund, so you're no longer bidding in for a pot of money, you're actually bidding in with your proposals, and then if they like the look of your proposals, you'll get a lengthier period to actually finalise them all. So not everything has to be finalised now for the Towns Fund Board, is my understanding, but sadly, for this extra £750,000, it does. So there's no way, as the town clerk rightly said at our last meeting, that we as a town council could get something worked up in such a short a time, because we'd have to use consultants to do it. And as we found out this evening, financially, we're in a very, very weak position.
Thank you, Councillor Kirk. Town clerk, do you have that phone number for booking the waste management at all, or can you get that off Councillor Kirk?
Yeah, I'm sure we can find the number. We probably have got it somewhere.
Yeah, maybe Councillor Kirk will share it with you anyway, so just to make things a little bit easier. Councillor Dennis, please.
Yeah, there has always been a telephone connection, Mr. Mayor, where any member of the public can ring up and book in, and that's manned Monday to Friday. So it's not an issue. That's always been going.
Yeah,
I have got a meeting tomorrow morning at 8:30 with the portfolio holder for waste, Councillor Eddie Pole, and any messages you want me to pass on to him or ask him, I'll be very happy to do so. It's only to do with the running of the sites. We have a weekly meeting that takes place, every Thursday at 8:30. So I've got no problem if whatever message the fellow councillors want me to pass on to the council. But in the main, we're finding it very, very, very positive out there, and we're very pleased with the way it's going on. And now, when we get back and over this COVID, post-COVID, we're hoping to really set about the recycling side of it, where and that's what it is. It's a recycling centre, and that's what we need to do, and that's what we're working on, and that's what we'll be working towards. So we have got. It's very exciting moving to the forward, and this booking system is going to give us the time to do that, because basically, from dawn till dusk, 3 or 4 days a week, we were absolutely swamped with waste. Well, now, due to this booking system, we can control the way it comes in, and it's more sensible. That it was either all feast or famine out there, but now it's a lot more manageable, and it's working very well for us.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tony Tye, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I take on board what Councillor Kirk was saying, and I think we really should be pushing for some monies from the 25 million for Skegness to make the park a better place to be. I know the pavements all round have got to be looked at, and that is not going to be too cheap. So I think that is a must. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cunnington. Councillor Cunnington. He's not with us. Councillor Dan Kirk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a comment to Councillor Dennis with regards to the recycling centres. I've personally used it 4 times. My wife does the booking and just tells me to turn up at a certain time. And yeah, it's been a much faster process. What I'd like to see moving forward in the not too distant future is to have different more of a rounded different types of waste that you can bring, because we're going one day for one thing and then the next day for the next thing with a half empty car, creating extra journeys and things like that. I know the guys have been, oh, have you got anything else kind of thing, which is fantastic, but just for it to be council led to say, do you know what, you can bring, you know, all types of waste on all days. Yes, I think that would massively help.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kirk. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Cunnington regarding people that haven't got the use of IT and have to rely on telephones, etc. If there is a message that Councillor Dennis needs to take back to Eddie Pole, then that would be the message that the civic site should be open for all peoples, so that can use it, and that is people that haven't got IT. We tried to ring through to Lincoln to book a slot, and I think we were on the phone for an hour and a half. In fact, it was worse than the doctors trying to get through Lincolnshire County Council. It seems that the system they got there is appalling. I think all of us who've tried to contact Lincolnshire County Council, it's just appalling. The whole system's appalling, and it needs to be seriously looked at, because at the end of the day, it's supposed to be customer focused, and it's not customer focused. The question I like to pose then about the £750,000 is to our reps then, is there any shovel-ready projects to go forward to get this money of £750,000, or are we just letting it go? And my final point is about nobody's commented on CCTV for the allotments. So I'd like Dan Kirk, that was his baby, to say the least, is about CCTV. At the last meetings, he was raving on about it. So perhaps he'd like to comment about that to stop the fly tipping going on there, so we can duly prosecute people if we see them doing it. And last and final thing I forgot, thank you, is that we need to encourage more working from home through our town clerk for our staff as well during this crisis that we're in during the pandemic. Thank you.
Councillor Dennis.
Yeah, a couple of things. To Dan Kirk, who would like to see people come in with various wastes. The problem is, Dan, when various wastes come in, they each go to a different place. And where we are with the social distancing, somebody comes in with wood, it goes in one, somebody comes in with green waste, it goes in another, somebody comes in with cardboard. If they come in with 3 lots, there's people wandering about the site. We can't manage that. That's why in normal times, that wouldn't be a problem. But in this time of socialised, we can't do that because people start walking across. It's like we'd like to accept disabled people in there. Now, we can accept disabled people in as long as they've got a helper, because we can't go and touch their waste. We have RAMs, we have risk assessments and method statements in place. And we can't do that. And we have to protect our staff, and we have to protect members of the public. You know, that's why they can't use our facilities on site, which can be very difficult, because we have to protect our staff, and we have to protect members of the public. And that's what it's all about. So, and that's very difficult. When it comes to the phoning system, Councillor Anderson, we had a plan with my lads, and because we were getting complaints about the phone system, and I told my lads, one at Louth and one at Skegness, and they rang 5 times at different times in the period of the day, and the longest wait they had was 4 minutes out of the 10 times that the 2 sites rang. So you must have just had a bad day, but we certainly haven't come across that. But I will take that back to Eddie Pole for you. Moving on to the Towns Fund, yes, we have got shovel-ready projects ready to go. There's a lot going on in Skegness. We've got a wonderful foreshore plan, absolutely brilliant, that you'll see. We've got, and it really is outstanding. When you see the mock-ups of this, it is absolutely mind-blowing. It's a wonderful thing, and hopefully you'll be able to see that soon. We've also got the police college, hopefully the police in the old courthouse, we've got that coming along. We've also got Beale's, looking at Beale's store. They're looking at that to be in a YMCA maybe at the top and maybe shops at the bottom, so they're looking at utilising that building. We're also talking about pedestrianising Lumley Road. We're having a look at that, and believe me, there's a lot of ideas and a lot of generation. And yes, we have got shovel-ready projects ready for the 750,000, and we certainly hope not to lose that, Councillor Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dennis. Councillor Cunnington. Councillor Cunnington.
Hello, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, on this Towns Fund and the 750,000, I did have a second walk around the Tower Gardens with the town clerk involved. The gentleman that came round seems very, very good at his job, seems to know a lot of things and a lot of people. He really is pushing to do things for us in the quickest time possible. We have a draft report going on, just so that all councillors know and that we're being transparent with everything. I'm waiting at present for the final copy of this second report, and it's far more intensive than the last one. It includes things like sensory gardens, community gardens, deals with some of the issues that's been raised around Tower Gardens, around the entrance between Lumley and Tower Gardens. And we are waiting for the final report. There are going to be some costings in there. The gentleman's going out of his way to help us, and hopefully we should have this report finalised sometime this week, or if not very early next week, and that's finalised, and he will do everything he can. So we may have something shovel ready, costed up for the very early August. So we do need a date from the Towns Fund as to when the final date would be to get a project in. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dan Kirk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In reply to Councillor Anderson, yes, I'm definitely an advocate for technology, and you know, CCTV can be a deterrent, but it can also help with prosecution. We also have a tendency to be reactive as opposed to proactive. Obviously, there are significant issues with closed circuit television, electricity for one of them. Yes, we can mitigate that with some relatively cheap solar panels and battery storage. That would be no problem. Data connection, you need to be able to transmit that footage at a fast enough speed. You could probably do that now on a 4G connection these days. So, you know, that's something to look forward to. Absolutely, I think it's something that could be thrashed out, and maybe some sort of working group or to get it on the long-term business plan. But we need to be mindful that we've got to be proactive and think about any other hotspots. And most, you know, a classic example, the site for the illegal break-in and entry. If there was some physical video evidence, I'm sure the police could therefore prosecute, as opposed to, oh, I'm sorry, we've got no evidence, we can't prove who did it, so that's now a civil matter. We need to be thinking about land like that. Significant risk, Beresford Fields, 1 bolt, job done, nice campsite, thank you very much. Oh, I've said that publicly, but it's not very good. It's not good. Don't go. But yeah, we have to think about being proactive in that regards. So yeah, CCTV, I don't know if it's something that's going to be in this term, council term, for financial reasons, as it's looked like.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tony Ty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a thought that when this report comes back from this gentleman who came round, why are we not looking at the Heritage Fund and see if they've got anything in their pot that could help out in the park? It is an heritage site, by the way. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirk, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is for Councillor Cunningham. The actual Towns Board meeting is on the 5th of August, where the Towns Board will be agreeing the projects for both Skegness and Mablethorpe for their pots of money. So I think you're really going to be pushing it. Amazing if you can do it, but it would need to be fully costed, ready to start this year, to be completed next year. And I say all that would need to be done, and with the chairman before the 5th of August.
Thank you, Councillor Kirk. Councillor Cunnington, you've still got your hand up. Would you like to come back in? No. Councillor Tony Ty, you've got your microphone on. Right then, you've got some good comments there and some ways forward. You've got the report in front of you. Does anybody want to make any movement on this? Councillor Steve Kirk.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just think we need to move and note the government's report for the first quarter. And we also note that the council has particular regard for the financial risk and the other items which have been brought to our attention by the town clerk.
Thank you, Councillor Kirk. Councillor Jimmy Brooks.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, you've got your proposal and your seconder. All in favour, please raise your hands on your virtual screen. And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 7, a 5-year business plan. You're still mute, sorry. Still muted, town clerk. Thank you.
Mayor, as you know, it was our intention to do a 5-year business plan by having workshops, etc., and COVID has intervened and that hasn't been possible this year. It is important that the council sets out an ambition, and even though there are clearly some difficult financial times ahead, that doesn't mean that council can't identify projects that it would like to take forward and objectives that it would like to achieve. I've tried to offer a starting point for the business plan so that there's something to comment on, something to add to, things that you can take out. I thought, in an essence, the business plan needs to capture the moment. And 5 years ago, when the business plan was approved by council, it was very much about taking responsibility and taking control in order to make sure that the services that were being delivered were of the standard that the town wanted. I think the mood has changed now, and it's very much now about sort of building a future together. Post-COVID, there's going to be a need for the town to not only work together in itself, but also to make sure that it is working together with all of the other bodies that have influence over. So that would be my recommendation, to think of it in those terms and what council can do, because we are facing some difficult times ahead. I've tried to keep in those projects and those ideas that were previously in as long-term ideas but didn't have any money behind them. You'll see from the plan that there's that initial vision, which I haven't changed significantly, and there are then a number of objectives which are what the council would set out to do in order to achieve that vision. And then underneath each of those objectives, you'd have a series of activities which would then deliver on that objective. So I think this document is completely up for discussion and alteration. It is simply a starting point, but we need to be in a position so that by October, November time, have some idea of what council's ambitions are going forward. Now, as we've alluded to, next year might financially be very difficult, but that doesn't stop you thinking 2, 3, 4 years ahead, hence of projects that you might want to achieve. And as with all the business plans that we've done, we try to overlap them so that any new council coming in after elections has something to work on whilst it actually gets its own business plan up and running.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dan Kirk, please.
I didn't lower my hand, apologies.
Oh, we've got the grandfather of the house wanting to speak. Councillor Dick Edgington, please. Councillor Edgington?
Perhaps he did the same.
No, I hadn't indicated to speak, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, you must have misinterpreted a slight twitch of the head.
No, you've still got your hand up. I can't see you on my screen, but you've
Oh, I
got your
beg
hand
your
up.
pardon.
Your virtual hand is up. Councillor
go.
Anderson. Councillor Anderson, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to hear the presentation from the town clerk. I think it's a good start, the draft business plan, and I'm glad to hear it's not set in stone because it needs to be fluid due to the pandemic and also financial constraints as well. But I just want to remind people, 2 years ago, under inclusivity, that is part of the business plan. That means everybody embracing it who lives in Skegness, both residents, holiday makers, and everyone else that comes here. A motion was passed by the town council, and the motion that came before was put before by Councillor Kirk, Steve Kirk, and I think it was seconded by Councillor Edgington regarding race. And I think what we need to do is embed that motion in this draft business plan to make sure it covers and makes Skegness a diverse place that everyone is happy with. That's what I have been trying to do for several years. And I was so pleased, really so pleased. And it's one of the finest debates that we ever had as a town council was 2 years ago when that motion was put. And I was proud of Councillor Kirk when he stood up and moved that motion, and so proud that it came before this council and we agreed it unanimously at that time. So if we can embed that motion into this business plan, it would set me in so much happiness and in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Steve Kirk.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of observations on the business plan as written. What we have in front of us is pretty much a maintaining business plan. There's nothing in there that's new, and maybe this council needs to put something new in there. But working with what we have in front of us, certainly if we look at item D on business plan, to champion provision of sufficient, suitable, affordable housing for the people with local connection to Skegness. But we said we're going to do that. I know that, as was then when we wrote it, Waterloo said that they weren't planning on building any more housing in Skegness apart from building out what they've currently got in Saxon Fields. Well, that's now platform housing, and I don't think that has changed. So we need to think how we're going to help deliver this in some way. If our biggest builder of affordable homes is not building any more in Skegness, then we need to think, what can we do to influence that? I certainly think there's conversations to be had with the district council who've expressed an interest in building homes, but I don't know whether that's the answer. But I certainly think we need to have a little bit more in there to identify actually how we're going to do these affordable homes. And I think people need to be quite clear that affordable homes doesn't mean that these can't be market housing. They just need to be affordable. So it's not, we're saying, oh, it all has to be what was deemed social housing, which is what the local plan allows for. But if we really want to put affordable housing in there, then we need to be lobbying East Lindsey District Council to change its local plan, which says there'll be no market housing built on the coast. We really need to challenge that. So I think I would like to see that in item D, that we are going to challenge the idea of having no market housing built on the coast, because I think, I'm sure most councillors will agree with, it's a totally ridiculous idea that you can't build housing on the coast unless it's to be rented social housing. I can't see why their life should be any less valuable than somebody who's paying for their home. So I think that's a stupid thing, and we need to challenge that. Secondly, I'd like to go down and look at E and K, because E is about healthy, positive communities. And K is about enhancing the Tower Gardens. Well, surely now, as landowners of the Tower Gardens, we can incorporate those two. So not only are we doing the works around making it more inclusive and accessible, but also as a place for fitness and well-being. We already have open air Zumba classes going on in there that are being organised privately. So maybe that's something we should be pushing. And the idea of this outdoor gym equipment, maybe that's a project we want to put into Tower Gardens. Maybe we want to devise a fitness circuit in Tower Gardens, which is free for anybody to use, but we've actually thought about it, laid it out, so some cardio stuff, all that sort of thing. So I think we can build on that as well to make it a project for this council. And my final point was, Councillor Anderson, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I would like to see somewhere in there that says about we are proud to be part of an inclusive community, and as a council, we will publicly challenge any form of, well, I'm not just talking about racism, anything that attacks the 9 protected characteristics. We as a council should be the beacon to say, no, this is totally unacceptable, and we should have that in our business plan. Those are my only 3 observations, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kirk. Councillor Dankirk.
Thank you. Yeah, I can remember seeing not so long ago job adverts that were blatantly illegal, you know, discriminating against those protected characteristics. And yeah, I think us as a council having that understanding that we're going to want to try and challenge that, I think is essential. I'd also like to add another one. We should also seek to protect our assets. And if that's in the plan, that does allow us to explore, you know, costings of such protections that me and Councillor Anderson have discussed previously. You know, we've got assets that are priceless. You know, you can't put figures on it, but it can easily be taken away if we're not protecting it properly by whatever means is necessary. So I'd like to see that being added to the business plan as something that we're actively trying to do. Not only maintain, but protect and develop assets that we currently own. I'd like to propose that we add that if anybody would be happy to second that.
Okay, we've got Councillor Anderson.
Sorry, I had my mute. I'm supposed to unmute it then. Sorry about that. If you heard anything, I'm happy enough to second both Councillor Kirk and Dan Kirk as well. I was going to call him his son, which he is, as well, under those 2 amendments they have made. Regards to affordable housing, yes, I think Councillor Kirk Senior raised this issue about PPG. Which is a government PPG regarding where one can build houses on the coast, and it is the government's PPG that East Lindsey are following, and I do believe it needs to be challenged. It's okay the government saying it's okay for social housing to be built and tenants to go in from either from a local authority or for a housing association and to be flooded, but we must protect or it's not okay for people who buy their own home. They can't go into areas. I think what we need is proper flood defence, and that's an issue within Lincolnshire County Council and the Environment Agency, but that's a different issue. I think we need to challenge it with our neighbourhood plan, and maybe the town clerk can come up with it, because we have challenged that in our neighbourhood plan. So I think we need to do that. To make sure that our young people and people that want to come and live here and add something to our community have a decent place to live. We owe it to those people, do we not? They shouldn't have bad accommodation, which is a risk to young children, babies, old people, and especially now in pandemic. It has been proved in hotspots where there is bad housing, COVID raises its ugly head by transmission. We certainly do not want to see that happen in Skegness. So we need good housing stock for our residents here in Skegness. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Billy Brooks.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I couldn't agree with Councillor Anderson's comments anymore. It is so difficult for people to build houses on the coast, and it is something that we as a council need to be taking forward. And I also agree with the other speakers as well. I think everyone's making very good points, and I think it's already seconded by Councillor Anderson. But yeah, very happy with them.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cunnington.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Picking up on one of the points that Councillor Kirk raised, Councillor Steve Kirk, about the fitness and well-being. For our residents of Skegness, Skegness is actually growing with caravan sites now out of town from Skegness towards Borough. It is a very busy road. There's lots of recreation down there. We have a garden centre, we've got other caravan sites. The footpath down there it's worse than what you would expect as a footpath, and there's certainly no cycle routes. I don't know whether this will be part of the business plan. It would be something high to aim for, probably never achievable. But what about upgrading the footpath from Skegness right through to Borough to also become a cycle path? You've got industry in Borough Marsh, you've got good business opportunities in Skegness. It's high to aim for, but whether it would be part of the business plan or not, I'm not sure. But whether we want to debate it, I'll leave it to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will bring Councillor Kirk back. He's got his hand up, Councillor Kirk. But just while we're on, just quickly, it's probably not the time and the place, but we need to also look, if we're looking at upgrading footpaths down Borough Road, the tragedy that's just happened, we really need to challenge what I think Councillor Carpenter's been doing for years and look at the speed on the restrictions on that road. But Councillor Kirk, please, if you'd like to come back.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I was actually coming back. There was another thing that I wanted to raise, but I'll come back on those other points in a moment. So the other thing I wanted to raise, and I do apologise for not raising my speaking earlier, was in section E, we refer to quite frequently to the Skegness Partnership. Now, when this original business plan was written, there was an active Skegness Partnership, but since then it got amalgamated to within the chamber, and I'm not sure whether we should still be listing it as a partner, because there's some very capable people there, but the membership just dwindled and dwindled and dwindled, and it went through to the chamber. So I'm not sure that the partnership should actually be listed as a body that we can work with to deliver anything. If anything, it should now be the chamber rather than the partnership. And to answer Councillor Cunningham's point, well, surprise, surprise, that is actually a cycle path. You'd be hard pressed to find it. And myself and my colleagues in Borough have been trying very, very hard to get somebody to agree to do some work to reinstate. There's several issues around it. One of them is a lot of the farmers down that road have buckthorn hedges, and when they come and cut them, the thorns are left all over the path. So if you were to go down there with a cycle, you'd probably get 50 punches between here and Borough. And the second problem is the ingress of weeds and grass. There's actually more lawn on the cycle path than there is cycle path. And I can assure Councillor Cunningham, I've raised this issue time and time and time again, but I'm sure he would appreciate that when Highways struggles to have the money to maintain roads, a cycle path stroke footpath isn't top of its priorities. That's not an excuse. That's just a statement of fact and a share of my frustration.
Councillor Kirk, can I just ask you a question? Is that something you can raise about this tragedy that's just happened regarding the speed of that road? Can we not get that looked at to reduce the speed on that section?
It's already, the question has already been asked. The question was asked after that poor young girl, the incident, what was it, 2 years ago now? Time flies so fast. Yes. It was raised. I'm more than happy to raise it again because it frustrates me. The same way that it frustrates me as we come down the A52, where we have 58 different speed limits, but we still approach our industrial estates doing 50. Yes. And there does seem to be a little bit of leeway. It's really a road safety partnership issue, but I'm more than happy to take that back to Graham Butler and ask him to look at both those areas again.
If you could, please, because how many tragedies do we have to go through?
I agree with you entirely, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kirk. Councillor Dennis.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm I don't really know what happened to the tragedy on Roman Bank, and whether it was speeding vehicles or not. That's something that I'm sure that will come out of the inquest, and then we can get a more balanced view of what happened, because I really don't know what happened with that. What I would like to speak about, the affordable housing that Councillor Anderson spoke about. You know, I'm on planning policy as well as planning at East Lindsey, and we are working our socks off for social housing on the coast. It's so important that there can be no housing. The local plan that we signed up for, because we were handcuffed into signing up for the local plan, because if we didn't fit in this particular local plan a couple of years ago, we'd have been put into special measures, and then we wouldn't have had an opinion. And so therefore we agreed to a local plan that wasn't fit for purpose, but we agreed to that local plan. The first thing we got the opportunity was to alter it. And that's what we are doing. We're working feverishly to alter this local plan, you know, and we're looking now to build houses on the coast, and we're looking to build market housing, and we're looking to build affordable homes, and we're looking to build them safely. Because as Councillor Anderson, you know, alluded to, you know, in years gone past, it was all right to have social ground floor housing in a floodplain, but not market housing, which is ludicrous. So we're now looking forward now to build those, but to build them in a flood resistant fashion. So we mitigate the flood risk, because otherwise you're closing. If you say there's no housing on the coastal strip, that's ludicrous. There's going to be no people build, no people come, and it's going to be no good. But we are working feverishly, and we will alter, I assure you, within this term, all being well, we will alter that local plan, I do assure you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, thank you. In answer to the cycleway between Skegness and Borough, myself and Councillor Dodsworth, for those of you who can remember him, bless his soul, we started that cycle trail, and it was part of the Lincolnshire County Council cycle route. And yes, it is now part of a new initiative by this government to encourage people to cycle. We had the Prime Minister only yesterday announcing that people need to get on their bikes, okay, to beat obesity. So I think that cycleway, which was created back, and I can tell you when it was created in 1996. Myself and Councillor Dodsworth opened it. And yeah, I would like to see that, okay, enhanced, as what people have been saying. And I think it should be enhanced by Lincolnshire County Council. They should have adopted it, and it's been going in slow decline, is what Councillor Kirk has just described to us, and it should not be that way. When we're talking about children who want to get to school, who do not want to use a bus because of COVID and want to be using a cycle, do we actually push them on the roads, or do we actually push them to a safe cycleway? So, you know, all these kind of things need to be put in perspective. And Graham Butler, who I know very well, and I'm willing to have an argument with him if need be, okay, he needs, and the county council need to recognise, okay, that we should be putting safe cycleways in place, not only to beat obesity, and obviously the government has announced, as we all know, exercise on cycles now as a part of prescription that the government has announced. So there has to be safe cycle routes for Skegness. And that comes from the county council, and it should be a core priority. In regards to affordable housing, East Lindsey should be now looking at another housing association, another housing provider, rather than the one they've got. They need a plethora of housing associations that want to develop in Skegness and not just self-reliant on one housing association and two developers. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jimmy Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I totally concur with Councillor Dennis. I'm on the planning policy at East Lindsey as well, and we are working hard towards getting affordable, safe housing on the coast, because it's where the jobs are. This is what we need to do, and I totally agree with him. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, not sure if Councillor Kirk and Councillor Dennis wish to speak again, but you've still got your hands up, so I'm just checking.
I did wish to speak again, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, of course, Councillor Kirk.
Well, yeah, it was basically following on the conversations about cycle paths. Maybe we should have something actually in our plan then, that we are going to look at developing cycle paths or repurposing existing footpaths if possible. So we have a network of cycle paths in and around the town. Not so long back, I put forward a proposal, which got the knockback, unfortunately, about using Coronation Walk and Vine Walk as cycle paths. So you could actually get virtually from the industrial estate all the way up to Drummond Road without crossing a road. Okay, you have to cross a railway line, but hey, we don't have to cross a road. So there are opportunities for us to develop some cycle paths, develop some cycleways. We've got the work done on the Go Skegness project, the LCC project, which gave us a cycle path down to Gibraltar Point. Maybe we should have something in our plan where we talk about healthy communities to say that we are going to work with partners to identify and try and develop cycle routes within our town.
Okay, thank you. I nearly broke into a laugh there. It's on a serious note. If we're going to challenge obesity and we're going to get these cycle paths in our plan, let's make sure that we do it sensibly. Because while we're going to fight obesity, we go and offer them half-price McDonald's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday throughout August. So that really does confuse me at times. But can I bring Councillor Jimmy Brooks in, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If Councillor Kirk was putting a proposal for that, I would definitely second that 100%. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Kirk, please.
Yeah, add it to the proposals I've already made then, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we've got it proposed and seconded. You all know what we're going with, so if you'd like to vote with your virtual hands, please.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, could we just have some clarity on what we're voting on?
Town Clerk.
What I have written down is that there will be a challenge to East Lindsey District Council regarding the provision of affordable housing on the coast. We've heard some of the response from those on the Planning Policy Committee. There will be more on this within the NDP coming to council next week. There's within the positive, healthy community and Tower Gardens elements to look at fitness circuit, gym equipment, and potentially other sort of healthy living things that could be put into Tower Gardens, and then working with partners to identify and develop cycleways into and around Skegness. And also from the one that Councillor Anderson raised about that Councillor Kirk then put forward about protective characteristics and ensuring the council challenges where those are not followed, and also about protected assets, how they can be developed and as well as protected.
Okay, are you happy with that, Councillor Kirk? Dan Kirk?
Mr. Mayor, and that was the references made within our plan to the Skegness partnership.
Yes.
Okay.
There may be a couple of those as I've missed when I went through the draft that I've missed to take them out.
Apart from that, I think the clerk did very well. So 9 out of 10.
Yes. So we know what we've already proposed and seconded. All in favour, please show your hands on your virtual.
Before you go, Mr. Mayor, on the partnership bits, are we talking now? Just a clarification regarding that. I agree with Councillor Kirk about the Chamber of Commerce, but our partnership predominantly now is with the town boards or the town's board, is it not? So does that need to be part of it?
Councillor Kirk?
Well, Mr. Mayor, the town board is just a transient beast, isn't it? It's a beast just to deliver a certain objective, if you were saying that we probably need to be somewhere within our business plan, I think we need to be referencing the bid. I should have thought that earlier. I think maybe we should do. But as for the town's board, it's a 5-year plan, and I don't know how long the town's board will be in existence for, because I think once the funding has been drawn down for whatever it is, I don't know how long it'll be in existence. But yet, I don't think it would do any harm to say that we'll work in partnership with the town's board whilst it is in existence, and any future body that replaces it, just to cover ourselves. Yeah, I think that's a very good point, Councillor Anderson.
Okay, thank you. So before we go to the vote then, we now clarified that. So all in favour then, leave your hands up and raise your hands. Okay, that's carried, thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 8, the reopening of the play areas, risk assessment and signage attached. To approve the COVID secure risk assessment for play areas, the signage in situ.
As I mentioned earlier when we were talking about risk, it is one of the risk assessments similar to the others that you've approved, and we're bringing it before you so that the council's got ownership of it. We've opened the play parks on the basis of this.
Okay, thank you. Ollie wishing to speak on this item? Excuse me. Councillor Anderson.
Just move it as noted, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
It needs to be approved, Mayor, just
That's what I'm doing. Yeah, sorry. Move that to be approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Anderson. Seconded by Councillor Dan Kirk. All in favour, please show. That's carried. Thank you. Okay, agenda item number 10, lease for additional unit. To approve the signing of the lease for the additional unit previously approved by council.
It was agreed when council agreed it was agreed that I would come back and explain. Essentially, we've got the deal that I explained back in I think it was February or March. Taken this long because of COVID for the previous tenant to leave the property. So it's the lease is available to sign. It's the same terms and conditions as our other leases on the units, and they will all be brought under one lease.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carpenter, can you just turn your microphone off, please? Councillor Dennis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Billy Brooks.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, but have we missed out item 9 or?
Oh, sorry, we have. Yes. Sorry. Good then. I was reading it and it said situ and I turned over too early. Sorry.
Can I suggest we just complete this one and then go
okay,
back?
We'll complete this. Sorry about that. I'll blame Councillor Carpenter for not chairing the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're Councillor Dennis. Sorry, you've moved it. Councillor Dan Kirk.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just to make you aware that Councillor Saxon was frantically waving his extremities to notify he wished to speak.
He can wave all he likes, but I can't see him on my screen.
No, I was just making you aware that he wants to speak. Thank you.
Councillor Saxon.
Just about, I'd like to speak on agenda item 9 when it comes back round.
Okay, we'll come back round to that one then. So we've got a proposer that we move this by Councillor Dennis. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Buck. So all in favour, please show. Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Okay, I'll go back. Sorry about this. Agenda item number 9, securing land from illegal occupation, the verbal report.
Mayor, as you'd be aware, last week the travellers were evicted from the site that they'd occupied in Winthorpe. We've learned a lot from the process, and I now know how the process works. So that means that if we are needed to do this again, that hopefully it can be as speedily done as it's possible to do. So far, we've spent £706 on the actual eviction plus VAT, and I imagine that we're going to be quite a way over 1,000 by the time we get to the clear up costs. There were over 30 bags of rubbish. There were 7 bin loads of human waste on the site that had to be cleared up. There's still about 3 trailer loads of green waste that appears to have been dumped there by one of the travellers who was advertising on their van that they were working in tree work and gardening work, and that's been left on site. Currently, we're leaving it there. We can clear it, or we could leave it to rot down. It's in the wooded area. We've then got the issue of securing the site going forward. Sorry. Needs a drink. There's a temporary solution been put in place with some Harris fencing, but ultimately the whole area along there is vulnerable if a chainsaw is used to go through the wooden fence. There are gaps in the trees all the way along there that it's possible to get vans and caravans through, and it's going to be quite expensive to secure that properly. We've got other sites which I'm not going to mention because obviously we're live on YouTube and I don't want to say where they are, but we've got a couple of other sites that are potentially vulnerable, that have similar issues in terms of likely cost to protect them. One of them we might be able to partially protect with a height barrier, but there may be consent required for that. The other site, I think the only way to protect it, because it has some emergency access required onto the site, would be with a metal palisade fence, and again that is going to be quite expensive to put in place. So it's really the question is how important is it to council to secure these sites? We haven't got a budget for this, so and it's likely to be quite expensive to put in place a permanent solution. Even things like earth funds, I think on the site that they occupied, we're looking at probably 50 meters or more of accessible routes. So if you think that it would probably take something like 2 tons per meter to block that, you're talking maybe 100 tons of topsoil, which would be quite expensive to put in place by the time you've got diggers and the labour involved in actually laying that out and then seeding it afterwards. So as I say, we've got a temporary solution in place, but it needs looking at.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Saxon.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd just like to compliment and congratulate our town clerk on acting so quickly. I've never known ever travellers get moved off from pulling on to being escorted off in a week. So I think that's something, that can be commended. Very, very quick. active. You're quite right. It's going to take a lot. They can come back tomorrow, and it's the cutting down. The fence is not secure. I think the mounding is one of the things we thought about, and it only needs doing once, doesn't it? And it can be quite attractive with seeding and wildflower seed putting down. It can make it attractive, but again, it's not. There's no easy solution, is there?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Saxon. Councillor Saxon, if you'd like to mute your microphone. Councillor Edgington, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an ongoing problem which we've experienced from time to time over the years in Skegness, and the fundamental problem is the law is so unbalanced in terms of people that trespass and the lawful landowners of the land that is being occupied. And the clerk has just outlined the cost to this town council in the clear-up operation. And I think I'm right in saying, the clerk will correct me if I'm wrong, trespass, I think, is a civil offence, and as a consequence of that, we presumably would have to resort to the law to get the perpetrators to cover the costs of the clear-up operation, which I think would be pretty difficult to achieve. I think I'm right in saying that, Mr. Clark?
I think it would be impossible. Clearly, there was criminal damage in accessing the site, but the police, and this is a general response, unless they actually catch them in the act or have some witness who is willing to give evidence to identify the perpetrator, they will say they can't arrest multiple people for the criminal damage. Equally, it's, as you say, we have no powers in which to get their details. I mean, they're transient anyway, in order to recover any costs that we may have incurred. So there isn't really a solution as the law stands. There isn't really a solution for us.
Can I just make one final comment, Mr. Mayor, please?
Yes, please.
What the clerk has just said is obviously accurate, but it's also quite depressing. I think that the only way that this imbalance is to be addressed as if it has to make through parliamentary action. And I would hope that the local government association, because it's a national problem, as we all know, from time to time there's national reports of trespass and the disruption and the cost to the local communities that's had to experience this. And I think that national action is needed, and I would hope that Parliament, and perhaps through our local member of Parliament, we can get them to look at the law relating to trespass, because at the moment it is so unequal and communities have to bear the cost, and there appears to be little or nothing that we can do to those people that do trespass. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think the problem is, though, the law isn't happening. Councillor Saxon, can you turn your microphone off, please? The law, it was on social media of a vehicle dumping waste on a farmer's land, and they filled his van back up and sent him on his way. That was parked on our piece of land, displaying the number plate, and several residents messaged me that the vehicle wasn't taxed. They checked on with DVLA and it wasn't taxed. So again, the law is not really helping us on that side. So I hope somebody will do something one day. Councillor Anderson, please.
Yeah, thank you. I've listened to the debate, and I can't argue against what's been said. If the law is changing, it's down to the police to enforce it. I mean, we have now laws with facial masks entering shops and pubs and places like that to keep staff safe. But the police won't enforce it. For what they say that they haven't got the manpower or powers, or not manpowers, that is totally and utterly wrong. They haven't got the right amount of people to actually enforce the law, and that's the problem that we have. We can all put new laws in, but it's down to the police to enforce the laws, and if they haven't got the the right amount of people to enforce it, which they haven't, as we know. Therefore, that's the problem. But going on what the town clerk has said, I think that we need a proper paper brought to us with proper options and costings of a solution of what is needed. And we've debated earlier about protecting our assets, which is not just the town council, but it's the residents, all the residents of Skegness assets. And what we don't want to see is probably a cheap solution, okay, that will only suffice a bolt cutter on entry. I think there needs to be a proper appraisal paper with different options and costings brought forward so we can have a look, and also incorporate what Dan Kirk was saying, proper CCTV, solar powered, in places that we can have to help the police in prosecutions, if that's appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dan Kirk, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Edgerton and Anderson with their comments. What I'd like, there's two things, if possible. I'd like us to go into private session so that we can discuss our immediate risks so that we can have that discussion. Prevention is the only option that we have. We've got to do it. I mean, it's just absolutely appalling, you know, the small minority that can inflict such damage to not only our public perception but the general well-being and environment. We need to do something. Costings wise, yeah, I agree, we need to, you know, flesh this out. I'd like to propose that we go into private session, if somebody would happily second that, so that we can discuss any other immediate risks that we can all flesh out some ideas on. Thank you.
Councillor Steve Kirk.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Anderson. I think we need to have a full options paper, and I think that should be on a pink paper. I don't think going into private session now will help us, because we need to have these things costed. You know, the town clerk talk about putting mounds around some of our sites and the cost of doing it with topsoil. Well, surely 3/4 of that could actually be rubble and then topped off with topsoil and seeded, you know, to cut the cost down. So we do need to have a full range of options in front of us. It's a bullet that we've got to bite because the police don't want anything to do with it. They're not in the slightest bit interested. If you were to take a photo of a man getting out of his van, cutting the bolt and getting back into his van and have his number plate in, the police would say, oh, it could have been somebody else driving the van, because they know it's really, really messy. And the thing that really frustrates me, two things that really frustrate me. We have quite a large traveller community within East Lindsey. We have families of travellers who live quite peacefully, don't cause any bother to anybody, just have their lifestyle and are perfectly happy with it. And then we have these people who come in for their holidays. So that's all they're doing. Whilst they're in Skegness, there's another group of them up at Trusthorpe, again, breaking into private land and staying there. And that was even worse. They were actually partying on the beach and there was broken glass all over the beach at Trusthorpe that had to be cleared up. But we need to do our own bit, because somewhere in Skegness or surrounding area, there's somebody who knows they've just had their conifers trimmed for 1/3 of the price that it should have cost them. That's part of the problem. If you know a gardener coming to your garden to trim your conifers is going to charge you £150 or whatever it may be, and a van pulls up and says, I can trim your conifers for 50, then you are contributing to that waste being dumped somewhere. It used to be the industrial estate, and now it's our land. This particular community know what they're doing. They're breaking into poorly defended private land because they know now that people like the district council have got their land secured. So there's a couple of issues here. Firstly, we owe it to our community not to accept those cheap jobs, because we know it's going to be dumped on somebody's doorstep or in a dike or down a side road. But secondly, I think we do need this fully costed paper on pink so that we can discuss it fully away from the gazes of giving away where else people may come and stay for their holidays free of charge and cause disruption once more.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kirk. Councillor Cunnington, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, The suggestion from Councillor Anderson, very good. Like you say, bring it back on a pink paper, fully costed and everything. We do have a cheap option. We are keep talking about banking up, and we can see people putting things down. I say cheap, but it's probably actually more cost effective. The other option would be to actually dig out. I know you've got health and safety risks, obviously people falling down ditches, dikes and things, but dikes, ditches have been around for years. You can then use that soil that you dig out to mound up to make it double protected. That'd be probably the most effective and cost effective option. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The problem with building dikes and doing that, Councillor Cunnington, I think your health and safety risks would go through the roof on that, I have to say. I think that would be rather impossible. And as far as Councillor Kirk's comment that they do, I beg your pardon, they do conifers cheap. I think they might do conifers cheap, and then you intimidate the public for a lot more money. I don't think they do things cheaply. You know, I think a lot of these people are very mercenary to our elderly people, and if we can keep them away, that would be good. I do really think, and we spoke about this for the last 10 years when I've been a councillor, and CCTV won't stop them, mounds won't stop them. These people have got mini diggers, they've got plants, they know how it works. They come on a Wednesday, Thursday, because they know that the town clerk can't get to the court till Monday morning. It's all part of the plan, and they know how to do it. They're professionals at it. Then you'll go on, and they'll have a child, or they'll have somebody ill, or they'll have somebody mentally ill. These people have no scruples at all, and so I don't see there. You can make it uncomfortable, as the council have made it uncomfortable, but by putting barriers up. But they go elsewhere. So you close one door and another door opens, and it really is. You know, they come onto land, and it really is really difficult for the town clerk. You know, I think a lot of time can be spent. We can blow a lot of air out, but we don't achieve anything because these people are professionals. They know what they're doing. They're linked with phones and radios, and that's why you're absolutely correct, Dan Kirk, to go into pink papers, because they probably listen to this on YouTube now. And that's the way they are. I've dealt with them all my life, and there is good and bad in everyone. And as Councillor Kirk said, there's some wonderful travelling people about. The Romney people, wonderful people, look after their families. You know, they don't put people into care homes, in mental homes. They look after their families. They're wonderful people. But in everywhere, there's always bad eggs, unfortunately. And it is a shame that we spent over £1,000 there. You know, I believe that if you put a bund around there, I certainly don't think you want to put hardcore and soil. I think if you're going to just put soil down, you need to just put soil down. Hardcore is more expensive, I would say, than soil. But then how do you get on and maintain the woodland? How do you get on and maintain the grass? And so therefore you put a gate up round the bund, and therefore they'll smash the gate down and go through the bund. So how do you manage that? You know, I'll be interested in the town clerk's view on putting mitigation in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Billy Brooks.
Yeah, just really, I think before we can sort of sit here and say we need to do this or do that, I think it's important to just have the options laid out in front of us, the costs associated with them, because I feel like otherwise we could just sit here all day saying what could be better, and I feel like we need to have the options, the price, and discuss it from that point.
Okay, Councillor Dan Kirk.
Apologies.
Councillor Dennis, you still got your hand up. Did you want to speak again? Sorry. Councillor Dennis? No. Councillor Saxon? Can't hear you, Councillor Saxon. Can't hear you, Councillor Saxon.
Right, I've unmuted. I thought Dan Clark was in mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. The main thing here was the estate of Gleneid was behind me, right? They're mostly old people, you know, they're all retired, and it's the perceived danger. They were frightened. They come to my house. they phoned me. They phoned me. What can I tell them? I passed them on to the town clerk, or passed them on to the police. But the police said to them they couldn't do anything. There were witnesses when they went in. I was there when they went. The police went to them, and I just asked them if they were going to take any action on the criminal damage. But they said no, because as town clerk said, and Sid said they didn't know who done it. You know, he couldn't say who done it. But I think with the estate here, you know, we have a duty of care to our residents, and this is one of the things, as I say here, is perceived damage and perceived fear. They don't make it any less true. You know, they say, well, they've got a bad reputation, and well, some have. But you can't tell people like this at 70 odd and 80 odd that you know there's nothing to worry about, because they do worry.
Okay, thank you. I think it's something like Councillor Kirk has said, that we need to get something down on paper to be even able, otherwise we're just going to keep going around in circles. So we do need costings of what we can do. Like we say, we're not going to mention the other sites, what are vulnerable, but we need some costings in place. Councillor Anderson, please.
Thank you. I was going to move that if an options paper on pink, and I'm happy enough to second that as what has been said and move to the vote. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kirk, did you propose that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I did propose that we have a full costed options on pink papers to discuss as soon as Clark is able to produce it.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. So we've got it proposed and seconded on pink papers with costing. So all in favour, please show. Yeah, that's carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 11. I'll hand you over to the Deputy Mayor, who will take over. I will leave the meeting now and come back for item 12.
Sorry to interrupt just before. I'm also going to leave the meeting now because of my declaration of interest, and also I'm on planning at East Lindsey, so I'm going to leave the meeting now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brooks.
Same here.
Right, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Item number 11, cafe licence, Cafe Dancent, Tower Gardens.
No, it's not. It's not our one. It's a. It's
Is it not for ours?
No, it's a pavement license that's been put in. There is a paper showing the extent of the area that they wish to use.
Right, I've read the
page of the attachment.
Right.
Shows the area there. So it's for consultation. It's a bit like a planning application, but it's for a license.
It's the Sugar Sweet shop on Lumley Road.
We've got quite a few hands up. Is your hand up, Councillor Steve Kirk?
Only to move it. I don't think there's need a great amount of debate about this. While it's difficult to get people inside shops, it's very easy to sit outside and enjoy the bracing Skegness air. So I'd like to move it for approval.
Correct. I'll second
that. Councillor Anderson, is your?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, I'm happy enough to second that as long as there's no objections.
Right, we'll just go to Councillor Dan Kirk.
Thank you. Just to clarify, their proposed seating area is on High Street, I believe, isn't it? Not Lumley Road. That's where there's issue, because I wouldn't support it on Lumley Road, but I would on High Street, to which the diagram is showing.
Diagram does show High Street.
But that's the wrong way round then. The High Street would be to the left of Sugar Sweet premises, not the right. So I think they may have mislabeled High Street as Lumley Road, and that's a potential risk for me. If they've got, you know, the footway, especially during this time, can get especially crowded.
The shop goes from High Street to Lumley Road. It goes all the way through. Its address is Lumley Road, but where they're looking at is the back here, just next to where the Hot Potato has its seating area as well. So just for clarification, it clearly states a seating area on High Street, although their address is Lumley Road.
But then the shop premises would be on the right of the image, not the left, would it not?
Sorry,
I think basically they got the diagrams wrong. But
Yeah,
my,
can we
Sorry.
just go? We've got
Yeah.
Councillor
Sorry,
Mark
Chair.
Dannett with his. We've got the mayor with his hand up. Councillor Dannett. He's not in the meeting, is he? Councillor Ty. No?
Thank you, Councillor Carpenter. Yeah, I've got a few issues with this. It's coming out 4 meters. That's quite a long way. I mean, they must be talking of two sets of 4 seats coming out. That's a long way, especially down the High Street. If it's the High Street is not that wide. And if they're taking up 4 meters.
Right, well, Councillor Sid Dennis.
I think you'll find, sorry, Councillor Carpenter, I think you'll find Councillor Dennis has left the meeting.
Right, he's got his hand up, that's all. Councillor Anderson, did you want to come back?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The issue, I think, is it's with the county council who actually license or give permission, and the East Lindsey District Council's consultee, if I remember rightly. The county council, Steve Kirk, would probably tell me if I'm right and wrong, because I used to be on planning and regulation subcommittee at the county council. I believe this must fit the county council's criteria when it comes to measurement of 4 meters. Perhaps Councillor Kirk can correct me.
Yeah. Would you like me to?
Excuse.
Yeah, Councillor. Yeah, could you come back on that, Councillor Kirk?
Yes, certainly. There is a minimum distance, as we know, as we've seen down on the North Parade, and that minimum distance is 5 meters. So if their measurement is accurate, and there is 9 meters there, and they are looking to take 4 of it, then that would be allowable. But as Councillor Hanson quite rightly says, this is a county count. They've applied to the county council. They're just asking for us to comment on whether we would support their application or not actually into the minute detail of whether they can only actually have 3.75 meters. That'd be for the county council to mark out accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor. Did you want to come back, Councillor Dan Kirk? You've still got your hand up.
I'd like to speak if I may. I'm still in the meeting here. Somebody tells me I'm not in the meeting. Well, I am in the meeting.
Yeah, I see you with your hand up, Councillor Dennis. Do you want to speak?
Yes, I do. I'd like to speak for it, please. I don't think we need to fart arse about talking about meters and half meters in this day and age. If people are going to try and have a bob or two, they won't be having a bob or two. This is no time to be finicking about. We want to get on with it. And if it was Lumley Road or High Street, I disagree with all of you. We need to get on with it, and we need to make these people are trying to get a living and trying to make things work in this difficult time. You know, it's going to be certainly going to be weather generated. If it's a bad day, it won't happen anyway. And I'm sure, as it said, the county council is only just asking to ask us, and I'm all for it. Anybody trying to have a go and make a living need every bit of help they can at these times. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we've had it proposed and seconded. Do we want to vote on that, please? I did want to speak, if I may. Did you want to speak? Councillor?
Yeah, I did. I just knew that Councillor Dennis also wanted to. I just don't understand the diagram. It doesn't make any sense to me. If Sugar Sweet, the bakery, is on that side, then what that signage is for, that diagram, is for a portion of Lumley Road footpath to be taken. And it gets incredibly difficult with the amount of pedestrian and mobility scooter access at the best of times. And if there is then a proportion taken off for seating, I don't see that being right.
I'd like to speak, please.
Did you want to come back, Steve Kirk? Councillor Kirk?
Yeah, can I just say that, Dan, you're looking at this diagram as if your back is to the Hildreds.
Yes, that's what
your back is at the Hildreds, so you're looking across the High Street to the hot potato, the bakery, Sugar Sweet and the arcade, you could walk through Sugar Sweet and you'd be in Lumley Road.
Yes, that's what it is.
Is that what you was going to say, Councillor Saxon?
Yes, and it doesn't come out any further than the hot potato, and next door is the pub, which their garden comes out. The extension.
Yeah, at the rear.
Yeah, so I mean,
Right.
I can't see anything wrong with this, because as I quite agree with Sid, you know, at this day and age, you can get 3 metres. They could still have 3 foot on the pavement on Lumley Road if they wanted, but they've done it properly and they've come on.
I can see it. Yeah.
Right.
Arcade.
We've had it proposed and seconded. Do we want to vote, please?
Yes. Yes, we want to vote, don't we?
Yeah, you voted. Yeah, that's it. That's gone through. Thank you. Thank you.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yeah.
Can I just announce I will now be leaving the meeting as I'm on planning at East Lindsey. So.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Carpenter.
Mr.
Agenda
Mayor.
item number. Sorry, Councillor.
Mr. Mayor, I'm also on planning at East Lindsey, so I'll also leave the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edgington.
I should be leaving the meeting also, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you,
Are
Councillor
we
Kelly.
quorum?
Yeah, Councillor Dennis will also be leaving the meeting. Thank you. Good night, everybody, and stay safe.
Night.
I also be leaving the meeting. Good night, everybody.
Night.
So the ones we have left in, they're all on planning, are we? Oh, we've got Councillor Ty, Councillor Ty, Burnham, Councillor Sutton, Councillor Dankirk.
Are we core it, Mr. Clark?
Can't see.
We're
People
down
are
to
dropping off.
13.
I'm here, Mr. Mayor.
We are at the moment.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, can you still hear me?
Yes.
I wonder if the clerk could kick me out of the meeting, please, as I can't do it because it just doesn't let me at all with my speech technology.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cunnington.
Thank you.
Are you core? Otherwise, I'll leave the meeting.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
10.
7, 8. Have 9 councillors present at this moment.
I'm not on planning either, but we need to stay, I think.
Yeah.
Can we move on, Town Clerk?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 12, planning applications for consideration. 12.1, Mr. Williamson, planning permission, construction of a vehicle access, Roman Bank Garage, Roman Bank, Skegness. Councillor Anderson. Councillor Anderson.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. I'd like to move this, Mr. Mayor. I think it's appropriate that we do have this provision. And I tried for this to happen many years ago, and it was refused. I think the highways objected to it at the time. Just wondering if there has been any highway objections.
Highways haven't as yet commented on it.
Well, I've moved it any case. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Burnham.
I'd just like to second that, please.
Okay, Councillor. Okay, Councillor, we've got a proposal and a second. All in favour, please show.
I've got my hand up.
Councillor Saxon, Councillor Sutton and Councillor Tony Ty. I can't see you. Can't see anybody.
I've got my hand up anyway.
About Councillor Ty and Councillor Sutton.
Yeah, I've got my hand up.
Yeah, I can't see anything on the screen. Councillor Sutton.
Because the town clerk's got his screen. He's used his screen again. So it blocks
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Carried.
That's it.
Okay, moving on to 12.2. 98 Grosvenor Road, planning permission, change of use of a former bus depot under the Chester Business Storage Distribution, installation of trade counter and the change of use of land for storage of scaffolding equipment in the useful connection. Councillor Dan Kirk. Councillor Carpenter, sorry.
Yeah, I'll move that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dan Kirk.
I was just going to offer support as well, so I'll second that. I think it's traditionally always been commercial, so yeah, I'm in favour.
Yeah, fully agree. All in favour, please show.
Yep.
Okay, that's carried. Thank you. 12.3. Planning permission extension at 47 Furbeck Avenue, Skegness. Alterations to the existing dwelling to provide a ground floor lounge, dining room, living room and porch with first floor bedroom and ensuite over construction vehicle access. Councillor Tony Ty.
Yeah, I think this is a straightforward extension. I can't see a problem with it. Has there been any objections to that?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Seconded.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dankirk.
It's just an observation or a comment from the clerk, if I may. I'm not familiar with its location. Is it in keeping with, neighbouring properties? It's not overbearing in any way. If that's the case, I'll vote in favour with the proposed and second.
I haven't got a street view and I haven't looked at the street view because I haven't had time to do that today.
Just quickly Google it.
It's not a problem the way it is. It's on Furbeck Avenue, for goodness sake.
Yeah, so that, of course. Yeah. There's plenty of, yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, there's all sorts of, Furbeck Avenue's got all sorts of different sizes properties along it.
Okay.
If that help.
Yeah, well, it's been proposed and it's been proposed and seconded. So all in favour, please show. Just got Councillor Burnham and Councillor Sutton need to vote. I can't see your votes.
Councillor Sutton's put his thumb up.
Okay, thank you.
And Councillor Saxon has got his hand up as well. Yeah.
Okay, moving on to 12.4. Barn Cottage, Old Roman Bank, Skegness, section 73. It's to number 2 holiday occupancy. Councillor Tony Ty.
Okay, I've still got my hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry about that.
Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, I'll move it.
Thank you. I have a proposer. Do we have a seconder?
Yeah,
Councillor Dankirk.
Yeah, I'll second that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All in favour, please show. Yeah, that's carried.
Yeah.
So carried, yeah. Okay, thank you. Comes to the final part of our meeting tonight. I'd like to thank you all for taking your time and joining us tonight. And we'll catch you with a full town council meeting next week. So I thank you.
Thanks ever so much, Councillor Dannett.